Well, good morning and Happy New Year. Welcome to have each and every one of you with us as we begin another year, another season for us. And we are definitely in the winter season now, even though for the last number of weeks it hasn't felt like it. It has sure made itself known this past weekend. And in this part of the world, when you look at seasons, it's like each one of them tells a story. Now, if you're from other parts of the world, the seasons don't say as much. They don't perhaps communicate as much. But here, each season is a series or an essay of pictures or images, like a photographer who tries to capture the story behind an image. Our seasons reflect a story. And our lives reflect similar truths, each season of our lives speaking something about who we are becoming, where we are at in our lives. One season we're growing and developing, another it's about thriving and resting perhaps. For others there are seasons where we're maturing and there's seasons where we're reaping. One's about waiting, one's about anticipating. We're going to look at all of that next week. And as I thought about the theme for this year, I've been thinking about the story of our lives and the story of God's, His story. This year, we want to tell the story. And in this first season, this first series, every season tells a story. And the reason why I'm using some of this language was I'm in a new season in my life. And that's a phrase we often will use when there's a big change for us, isn't it? And, you know, this is the first year that we had our daughters that were kind of had left, and then they were back for Christmas, and then they left, and we got the Christmas trees, everything, Christmas is all packed away, everything is all cleaned up. How many have got their Christmas stuff all packed away? And there's something about that moment when it's all done, all cleaned up, all put away. For those of you who are older, the kids are all gone, and it feels like a new season. It's a change, and for Cheryl and I, we're in a different season in our lives with our family now all grown up, and I hear that from different people. They'll say, well, Pastor, I'm in a difficult season in my life right now. Whether you're in a spring or a summer or an autumn or a winter, every season tells a story. It has a series of pictures about who we are and where we are, and what we do in those seasons often tells our story louder than we could tell it ourselves. And this includes what we do with our time and our resources. We believe that our life has actually something to say. We also believe that God's story has something to say, that His story speaks more than just history, but that His story invites you into the narrative of the Scriptures. And so we want to look into the Bible stories, to look at His story over the course of this year, and to realize that as we write our story, and we examine God's story, together we make history. This year we want to hear the story. We want to tell the story, both His and ours, and stories paint for us all kinds of pictures of God's masterful design and His creative work in us and through us. And while most of our lives might feel at times like just a bunch of scribbles, God can take all those scribbles and make something totally beautiful.
That's good.
So let's begin with a question today. Over the Christmas season, how many went to the movies? How many went to see some movies? Oh, we got some movie buffs. We had almost nobody in the first review. What was the best movie you went to see?
Star Wars.
Oh, really? How many saw Joy? Oh, there's a few of you. Was it any good? Thank you. I wanted to go see that one. Creed. Did anybody see Creed? Okay, good. There's a few Rocky buffs. I want to see that one. I didn't get to see that one, but everybody saw Star Wars, right? How many saw Star Wars? How many liked it? How many liked it better than, say, 4, 5, and 6? Was it the ultimate movie? I didn't see all of the Star Wars movies. In my church traditions and my background, when I was a kid growing up, if I went to movies, I'd go to hell, and so. I grew up deprived, and I was not allowed to go see the movies. So now I'm trying to catch up. I'm 51 and catching up from my childhood. So I got 4. I got to see 5 and 6 before I actually go to see the movies. But I love the movies. I love the movies because I like a good story. I like a story that grabs me and pulls me in. And I think we like to go to movies because in some way, shape, or form, we like to identify with the stories. Stories are a condensed, cleaned up version of our own lives. You see, our lives can be messy, like the scribbles on the page, and sometimes our stories are confusing, and the plot lines are kind of difficult, and we can spend a lot of time trying to figure them all out. But a story that you see in a movie can often be so clear. In a good story, you know where it's going. You know what they're trying to do, what they're trying to accomplish. In a good story, we identify with some of the characters, especially the hero. And we realize there's something in us that calls us to be heroic. I would suggest to you that each and every one of us wants to be a hero of our own story. The person who rises triumphant, the person who conquers, the person who's victorious. Many of your comments on Facebook or social media as you declared your new year was really a declaration of being the hero of your own story. This is a new year, a year that I'm going to make a change, a year that I'm going to emerge, a year that I'm going to be triumphant, a year that is going to be different than any other time in my life. We want to be heroes, and if not in our own eyes, we want to be the hero in the eyes of someone else. Being an only child, I spent many, many hours being my own hero, because that's what only children do. They role play hour by hour and hour, and so I have had lots of experience. Maybe that's one of my problems, but I have lots of experience playing the hero in my own movie. And sometimes I was the hero, sometimes I was the bad guy, sometimes I was the good guy, all messed up at the same time. And I'm sure that I need some therapy on that one. But most of us have a difficult time acknowledging that we want to be the hero. When I say that, for some of you, you're going, I understand what you're saying, Pastor, but I don't like that word hero, because we feel that if we say we want to be the hero of our own story, that we want to be glorified, or that we're being arrogant to say that I want to be the hero of my own life. But that's actually not why we're driven to be heroic. I believe that we want to be a hero because we all have a desire to be special. We all want to do something that is significant. We want to accomplish something that is great deep down inside of us. And I believe that it is a gift that is given to us by God, that at the end of the day, I want my life to count for something. At the end of the day, I want to make a difference. At the end of the day, I want to know why I was here, that I had a purpose, that God had a plan, and that I achieved and accomplished that ultimate plan for my life. We want us to make sense. And we desperately want a good ending. You know, a good movie where you come to the end of the movie and the credits begin to roll up and nobody leaves. When you're just kind of mesmerized and you're watching in the theater, you're watching the movie, and as the credits are coming up, nobody moves and they just kind of sit there and they're contemplating the story. Or if it's a great story, everybody begins to applause. Deep down inside each and every one of us, there is a longing that our story will cause people to pause, to be mesmerized. That at the end of the day, when we come to our funeral, our passing, that people will pause and they will reflect, that they will applaud, if you would, about how inspiring our story was. That's what New Year's is all about. A new chance and a new day to write a new part of our story, to be the hero in our own lives and to make a difference in this world. The most influential stories that we encounter are not the ones, however, found in movies, but they are the ones that are found in each other. They're the stories that position our moral compass. It's the stories of other people that we rub shoulders with every day. And we want to introduce ourselves or to involve ourselves in their heroic journey and they into ours. And to see how those stories intersect. And hopefully at the end of the day, as we continue to write our stories and you write your stories, that our stories get better and better and better. So I thought today I'd look at what is it that makes a heroic journey heroic. What are the qualities of a hero in a good story? If we're going to write a good story in 2016, or if we're going to write another chapter in 2016, and we're going to be the hero of our story to make a difference and to count for something, what are the qualities that you have to have in order to have a good story? Well, the first one that I have, and I think it's going to throw you a bit because it's not what you would expect. The first quality is that the hero needs to have a backstory of pain. Every hero has a past. Every hero has a hurt. Every hero has some kind of painful experience or challenge. Maybe it's in their upbringing, maybe it's in their childhood, maybe it's in the early part of the journey, but there is a difficult circumstance to deal with, something that has to be overcome. In a good story, there is an understanding that the hero is not really perfect, nor are their lives. David the psalmist described his story like this. He said, "I am dying from my grief. My years are shortened by sadness. Sin has drained my strength, and I am wasting away from within." David was an incredible story, but in his story, he starts with a backstory of pain. Now, heroes have a backstory of pain, but who else has a backstory of pain? The villain. Villains have a reason to be bitter. There's a reason why they're a villain, correct? You don't understand what I'm saying? Villains have a reason of why they're the villainous. Because they're angry, because they're bitter, because there is some kind of a hurt or wound or background. And so the question is, what's the difference between being a hero or being a villain? A hero has decided to redeem their suffering and to turn their pain into some kind of empathetic expression towards the world. In other words, they take their pain and they try to make the world better. And a villain takes their pain and tries to make the world bitter. A hero has decided that they're going to redeem their suffering. A villain has decided that they're going to take their suffering and seek vengeance on the world and to make all the world pay for their pain. And the difference comes down to this: whether you're the hero of your story or the villain of your story is an attitude. Right. It's humility. Being grateful that life has been tough, but glad that what you have and that where you're at and that you can go on. Or arrogant. Life should have been better. Now I'm going to make it better. I'm going to hurt who I have to hurt. I deserve to be better, and I'm going to take what is mine. And if I hurt the rest of the world, to heck with the rest of the world, I'm going to get mine. It leaves you with this choice, doesn't it? What are you going to do with the backstory of your pain in 2016? Are you going to let it move you forward and become the hero? Or are you going to become more the villain of your story? Many would say, well, I don't have what it takes to live a heroic life. I don't have enough of an understanding of what I'm going through. Notice the mix of emotions that I did as I considered Facebook and social media over the course of kind of the end of 2015 and the first couple of days. I noticed the number of people, more than normal, who said, 2015 was a year of heartache. 2015, worst year of my life. 2015, don't want to repeat that again. 2015 has been tough, but I'm wanting it to turn around. Attitude speaks to how we process our backstory of pain and difficulty and trouble. Right. Interestingly, God almost always calls people whom we would not choose to become the hero. When you look at all the stories, and we're going to look at a lot of stories over the course of this year, many of which you and I would not choose to be the hero. Abraham, too old, cowardly. Sarah doubted, laughing at God's promises. Amos, no formal training whatsoever. John, actually self-righteous. Jeremiah, depressed, suicidal. Jacob, a liar. Moses, a murderer and a stutterer. What if God, think about it with me, what if God chooses those who feel they couldn't do it on purpose? What if your very fear, your very insignificance, your very hurt, your very pain, that very back part of your life is the very thing that God says, because of that, I'm going to make you a hero. I'm going to make you a hero. I'm going to do something with your life that you couldn't do it on your own. And what you look as a crutch, what you look as pain, what you look as unnecessary, what you look as that what disqualifies you actually qualifies you in God's economy. I'm going to take those things and I'm going to help you to be the best hero of your story. There are those of us here today who are thinking, well, I can't be my own hero because of my past, or my mistakes, or a tragedy, or a regret, or my sin. But you have a choice today. You can choose to take your story back. You can take your pain. You can take your disqualifications or your self-doubt, and you can identify yourself as a victim, or you can identify yourself as victorious. You get to choose today.
That's very good.
You can take the pain and you can redeem it by turning it into something that is very, very powerful. You can choose today to no longer be the victim of your own story. Regardless of how stormy the season is of your life, I want you to understand today that God wants to transform our lives and then transform our world through transformed people. And it requires humility. It requires a drive and a hunger to do life better. And it requires a choice on your part to never identify yourself as a victim in any circumstance that you're going to face in 2016. If you do nothing more than that, no other New Year's resolution will transform your story more this year than if you decide right now, right here, this year, I will not be a victim. I will not be a victim on Facebook. I'll not be a victim on Twitter. I will not be a victim on Instagram. I will not be a victim with my speech, with my life, with my language, or with anybody in my world. I refuse to be a victim. Can somebody just amen me on that one? We exist to change the world, and those who call themselves victims don't change worlds. Nelson Mandela, Bishop Tutu, Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa all struggled deeply, but not once did they ever identify themselves as victims, and they changed the world, and so can you. Real heroes refuse to allow their hurt or their pain or their struggle to keep them from writing the best story possible. Name one character in the New Testament who didn't go through hardship and pain and didn't emerge victorious because they leaned on Jesus Christ to redeem them from that pain. Whatever season you're in or have been in, we'll talk more about the seasons next week. You can live the kind of life that God wanted you to by taking your mistakes and your wounds and your difficulties and allow them to qualify you to be the hero in God's story for your life. What are you doing with the seasons of your pain? What are you doing? Second quality, heroes take action. Heroes take action. Now, the hero cannot just react to life. They actually have to do something that makes a difference. And that's what brings out the best in the movie. There are very few characters in movies that don't take initiative and try to accomplish something. And I was trying to think of who is a character that would be the opposite of that, and the only thing I can think of was Homer Simpson. Homer Simpson just responds to life unless he wants donuts. Now, if he wants donuts, then he actually does something. But for the most part, the entire dialogue of the Simpsons story is Homer just responding to whatever life throws at him. Life is impacting him. He's not impacting life. He really just responds. Now, sadly, he is a reflection of just too many stories. Too many of our stories. Too many of us, while we mock the story, laugh at Homer Simpson, too many of us are actually living his life. And we are responding to life that is thrown at us rather than making a difference and changing life. Somehow we have a tendency to have fallen into a state of learned helplessness. There's nothing I can do. I can't make a change. Consider with me then, what if when God created the earth, when God created you and I, God made us to be in His image. And then making us in His image, He made us to be creators along with Him, to be co-creators of life. What if God gave you the power and the calling to impact your world and to actually change it? What if God gave you what you would need to change this world? If we understood that shift in thinking and ran with it, then we wouldn't spend our whole life saying, oh, life stinks. Oh, I got a bad life. Oh, I got more problems. I can't be victorious. I can't do anything. Because, oh, why is this happening to me? Oh, what did I do to deserve this? We'd say, you know what? This is garbage. Today it stops. Today I'm going to change this. I am tired of just sitting around letting life happen to me. I'm going to start making life happen. Not because I have the power, but because God has put that power within me. Because greater is He that is than he that is in the... So are you going to let the world dictate to you, or are you going to dictate to the world? This has got to change, because I've actually been given the power to change and to create solutions by the power of Almighty Creator God who has called me. People who change the world don't know they're not supposed to try and change it. They're too busy changing it. So rather than react to our bad marriage, we'd say, you know what? How can I make my marriage better? I'm not going to try to change the other person. I'm just going to try to work on myself. How can I become a more godly man or a more godly woman, rather than just resign myself to a lousy marriage, a lousy spouse, and a lousy life? If there is a problem, I will solve it because I have Christ. I am not afraid of conflict because I can make this world a different place. I am a co-creator of life because God has called me and enabled me by faith. I'm not a responder to life. I am an initiator to life. I am not a taker of life. I am a giver of life. I see a problem, but I know I have what it takes to not just talk about changing it. I can actually do something to change the world.
That's good.
There is always something you can do. There is always something you can do to make it better. And most of us are really nervous with this. And the reason why, I figured it out. We all desperately want to believe what I've just been ranting on for the last 3.5 minutes. But there's one thing that keeps us from just going, yes, Pastor. Because if it's true, then I'm responsible. I'm responsible for my life. I'm responsible for my circumstances. I'm actually responsible for my job, my career, my marriage, and my kids, and my tomorrow. And it's so much easier to just be a victim. It's so much easier to blame somebody else. It's so much easier to just respond to life and go eat donuts. But that's not much of a story, is it? Who wants to read that? And the ingredients of a meaningful life or a meaningful story are the same for you and I. We need to redeem our suffering. And we need to do something about that part of our lives that moves us forward. Paul had an understanding when he said, tell others about Christ, warn everyone, teach everyone with all wisdom God has given us. We want to present them to God, perfect in their relationship to Christ. That's why I work, that's why I struggle, depending on Christ and the mighty power at work within me. Paul says, here's who I am, here's why I'm here, here's who sent me, and here's what I'm trying to get done. That's a good story. And when you're searching for a good movie, what do? You go on to Netflix and you read the brief, or if you're on Rogers, you hit the info button. You know what I'm talking about, and it gives you just a brief snapshot. If someone close to you was going to write the Netflix info part of your life, what would they write? If they only had a couple of paragraphs, would it be exciting? Would it be intriguing? Would they draw you in? If people can't explain your life clearly and simply of who you are, why you're here, what you're doing, how you're trying to change the world, and what you're doing with your story, then maybe we got to do something about that. Even if that means conflict. Even if that means struggle or a battle. Because without conflict, without a struggle, or without a battle, you just don't have a good story. It makes the story worthwhile. All of us spend most of our time trying to avoid the struggle, avoid the conflict, avoid the pain, rather than lean into it and say, I'm going to take this and I'm going to make a great story out of it. We'd rather sit around and eat donuts. The last quality that a hero needs in a good story is a guide. The hero needs to be submissive and leaning on and depending on someone in their life. Something that supports them and encourages them on. There's always a moment in every great story when the hero doubts themselves, is tempted to give up or to give in. That one person who shows up when they get themselves really stuck or really in trouble or really in a crisis. The guide is always introduced into the story as a person that helps the hero along. Who's the guy in Star Wars for Luke Skywalker? Obi-Wan. Who's your Obi-Wan? For the older ones. Who was for Batman? Batman and? Robin. Katniss Everdeen. Woody from Cheers. He was his ally. What's the difference between heroes and guides in the story in storytelling? The hero starts off with doubt and fear and lacks courage. They're timid, they're shy. They don't think they can do it, but they end up heroic. They end up full of courage. The hero is never independent. There is always someone in their life that pushes them forward to steer them and to guide them through. The story of our life is about transformation. It's about becoming somebody different than you were 10 years ago. And that if all you ever do is react to life or respond to life, you will never transform into what God has planned for you. Right. Do you know someone complaining about the same things that they complained about 10 years ago or 5 years ago or in 2015? Are they still complaining about? Point them out to me. No, don't do that. The difference is they're responding to their story. They're not engaged in their story. They complain about the trouble rather than to solve the trouble. And the idea here is that you're designed by God to transform and to be transformed, to be someone in 10 years that you aren't right now. And it doesn't come without conflict and hurt and challenge and perseverance. That's why God gave you a marriage. He gave you a marriage to transform you and to make your life miserable. So that in that angst, in that turmoil, in that difficulty, you'll become someone better than you could be on your own. And just the time you figure that all out and you make your life wonderful, then God gives you these precious little things called children, which makes your life a delightful series of hells and conflicts and difficulties. And just the time you figure that all out, He grows them all up to be just like you. We call them teenagers. Heroes need a guide. They need a confidant. They need someone to show us the way. Without the confidant, without the ally, without that person in your life, it flies in the face of everybody who's trying to be the hero all on their own. Because I can tell you, being the hero in your life is not about independence. It's about interdependence. It's about understanding that I can't be who I am and write the best part of my story without a wife, or without a husband, or without children, or without friends, or without colleagues, without having other people in our lives to come alongside of us and to help us and to encourage us, so that while I write my story and they write their story, together we write good stories. And there's an ultimate guide. And in Psalm 31, we hear David struggling with the story of his own journey. And we learn about how he asked God to be his guide in his life. You see, God has no interest in making people look perfect. That was the beautiful thing when you look at the stories, and we'll look at these stories over the course of this year. God never tries to make his heroes perfect. He takes them just the way they were. In fact, he exposes often their mistakes and their difficulties, because it's what makes for a good story. David had all kinds of flaws, lust and anger and manipulation, and he doesn't hide it. In fact, he's brutally honest. Let me just read for you a little bit. I won't read all of it, but a little bit of Psalm 31. It gives you a picture, and I want you to listen to this as if you were reading the back of a DVD cover of a good movie. Lord, I've come to you for protection. Don't let me get disgraced. Save me, for you do what's right. Turn your ear and listen to me. Rescue me quickly. Be my rock of protection, a fortress where I'll be safe. Oh, pull me from the trap of my enemies. I find protection in you alone. I entrust my spirit into your hand. Oh, rescue me, Lord, for you're faithful. Oh, you've not handed me over to my enemies, but you've set me in a safe place. Have mercy over me, oh Lord. Oh, God, I'm dying from grief. My years are shortened by sadness. Oh, what if they see me on the street and they run the other way? I'm ignored as if I was dead, if I were a broken pot. I'm trusting you, O Lord. You're my God. My future's in your hands. Rescue me from those who hunt me down relentlessly. How great is the goodness that you have stored up for me who fears you. You lavish it on those who come to you for protection. Praise the Lord, for he's shown me the wonders of his unfailing love. Lord, love the Lord, all of you godly ones. Be strong and courageous, for all of you who put your hope in the Lord. I don't know about you, but that's a good story. Communion is a celebration of a good story. It's God entering our lives and guiding us and saving us and healing and transforming our story with His story. I want to invite you to join us in communion today as we begin 2016 together. And after you receive the emblems, we'll partake of them together in just a few minutes. But as you take hold of these emblems, the bread symbol, a picture, a story of His broken body. The juice, again, a picture, a symbol, an image of His shed blood. Consider His story. Consider your story. We all want the heroic life. I know I do. But I also have to confess that I struggle with what it takes to become one. I want to be the hero of my own life. I want to know that I count for something, that I'm special, that God's purposes and plans are actually coming together. And I want to believe that God can take the mess and the scribbles and the imperfect backstory, the pain and the struggles that I have with my own doubts. Times when I don't think I can go on and I don't think I can take any more of this. I struggle with the need to want to make the world a better place and make my world a better place and to make a difference, to change my community, my city. To know that I come to the end of this journey, the end of this story, and know that it was worth reading. That people actually enjoyed my story. That there were moments that filled people with awe and surprise, some humor, a little confusion. And all along this journey while you're writing the story, you need a guide or an ally. You need somebody to come alongside with you. Somebody who has gone before you and written just a few more pages than you have. And if you're like me, you probably need more than one. Probably need a few. Those in your life who've just inspired you by their story. And you almost want to write a little bit of theirs into yours because you really, really like it. 2016 is here, and together at Gateway, for another year, we're going to write more of the story. I'm going to write more of mine, and you're going to write more of yours. And God comes alongside as a guide and a confidant, as an ally. And His Son Jesus wrote and played the biggest part in the biblical narrative, the biblical story. And we're going to learn how it was a love story. It was a story of redemption, of healing, of forgiveness, of hope. God's story is a story of dreams and potential. And this year we're going to look at some of those stories. We're going to look at the heroes, probably a few villains. And together we'll participate in His story. And we'll partake in His life. So let's partake of His life today as a beginning, as a new chapter, as a new fresh page. As I said, every season has a different series of pictures. Communion is no different. It's a symbol of His body, the bread. It's broken. And Jesus said, remember my story. Remember that I was broken for you when you partake. Would you partake today? And the story goes that Jesus held up a cup of wine and He said, it's a representation of my blood. Every time you drink of it, remember the story. Tell it to one another. May it be encouraging and inspiring to you to go on. So let's partake. And I want you to take a minute or two right now just to kind of bow your head, and I want you to consider your story. What you're writing. You trying to be the hero? Or is it looking more like the villain? 2:16 it's all about choices. It's all about attitude. Whether you're the hero of your story or the victim of your story, it's up to you. Where could you make a difference? What are you doing this year? Just one thing that's going to make a difference. Whose lives are you going to make a difference in? Or is it just going to be another year of talk? Another year of being a big toughie on Facebook, telling the whole world what's wrong, while you hide behind a computer screen or a smartphone, but you haven't got the courage to go out and actually do something about it yourself. What are you going to do to write some more of your story that changes something? Who are the mentors? Who are the allies? Who are the people in your life that you want them to come alongside and help you write your story? The conflicts, the struggles, the battles. I'm not going to run from them this year. Let's get into it. Let's lean into this thing, because it's the conflicts and the battles that make great stories. What if instead of just responding to life and eating donuts, you could see that God has given you a book with 365 blank pages. And every day you get to write a new paragraph, a new page in that book. And it's the story of your life. And before you know it, this whole chapter will be over and we'll be here again. Yeah, it's 365 pages, but it's only 365 pages. It's not that long. Don't just respond to life. Don't just react to life. Do something. Do something different. Do something that changes your story and changes the story of others. Perhaps you want to get a journal. Maybe you need to write your story down. You write your thoughts down. I don't know. But every season has a story. And today you have a few more blank pages where you get to be the hero. You choose. And so, Lord, thank you. Thank you for your story. The story we celebrated with the coming of your Son, the Christ child, the baby in a manger. The man who walked this earth and taught us how to live and to be what a real hero looks like. the one who is still here, encouraging us, inspiring us. And when we want to give up, he does not leave us, because he believes. May we believe in ourselves and believe in the potential and the call of God and the empowerment of the Holy Spirit to actually write a fresh new story for ourselves and for those in our lives, I pray. Amen. Amen. 2016 begins. Go be a hero. Go be your own hero in your own story. God bless you.